Hello again. Here we are to continue our talk of D3 and SVG and data visualization, right? In the previous video, we talked about scales, right? In this video, what I'd like to talk about is lines, like drawing a line. Now, before we get started, we need to understand what exactly is a line in an SVG. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to start by inspecting the SVGs that we have here to take a look at what they are in code. So I'm going to right click and choose Inspect Element. And the SVG code that we're looking at here is the code that's generated by D3. So when we run this block of code here, D3 is actually writing the SVG information into the browser for us, okay? So first of all, I'm looking at the SVG here that has these circles and the dates on it. And when I open this one up, you can see each circle is a separate object, right? So it's got a tag with some attributes, and there's 10 of these because we have 10 data points, right? And then below that, there's 10 text elements, right? And every text element is the same. It's a tag with some attributes, okay? The attributes are the values inside the opening tag, okay? You know, if we look at the circle, we can see that to describe a circle, we need to SVG needs the following information. It needs to know the radius of the circle. That's the R attribute, right? 10 pixels. It needs to know the fill, right? So it gets a gray value for the fill color. And then it needs to know the X, the center X, and the center Y position, okay? So to draw a circle, we need to tell SVG, what's the radius of the circle, what's the fill color, what's the CX and CY, okay, center X and center Y. And from that, then SVG can draw it, okay? So if I hover over this guy, he's at CX of 25, CY of 375, okay? For a text object, it's similar. We say text. To figure out what text to display, we put the text in between the two tags. And to position the text on the screen, we give it an X and a Y property, okay? So how do we draw a line, right? So I'm going to scroll down and find this element in my, my HTML elements here. And so I'll open this guy up right here. Oh, wait, I guess it's the one above here. It's this guy, right? So I'll open this one up. And when I open this up, you can see that it's got a path property followed by a bunch of text. So the text here is the same as it was in the last one, right? It's just the text object, right? But it has just a single path, right? So we have a line here, but that line is just one path in SVG. And that path has a D property, right? D for data, okay? And the data property has a bunch of numbers in here, right? And if you look at this closely, the numbers are all separated by commas. So it's like we can imagine that it's X and Y, comma, X, comma, Y. And then there's another comma. Then we have the next value here. So it's like X and Y, right? Comma, X and Y, comma, X and Y, right? And then there's another couple properties in here. So there's stroke width, there's fill, none, right? So stroke is the color, stroke width is how thick the line is, and fill would be if it was a path that closed to a shape, we could fill it with something, right? Okay. One more quick look at the data right here. So D contains all the points that determine like where the points of the line are, in the drawing, right? And they have these little letters in front of them. So this is like L 0, 400, right? And then there's, M 0, 400, and then L 55.555, right? So the M stands for a move. So it says like move to this point. That means we don't draw a line. So we're going to move the pen to 0, 400. L means draw a line, like line 2. So we're saying line 2, 55.55555 and 341. L, line 2, 111, 111, whatever that is, right? I don't know how to say that. 111.111, I don't know, right? Anyway, so that's the language here. And we never want to write this. Like, you never want to write this by hand. It would just be a headache, right? So we're going to use D3 to generate this data. But notice, to draw any number of points, a line with any number of points, we only need one path. So you can draw the most complicated shape you can think of with a single path, okay? And just if you're curious, you can look up SVG on, on the documentation. So I looked it up on mdn.com, and you can look at path here, and it'll tell you what all those little things are, right? So M is like a line 2, and it's followed by the X and Y, okay? And then you can see an example of it here. D with a move to 10, 10, right? And then, they give you some other things too. There's an H and an L, so we can do a line 2. I guess the H is like a horizontal line, But anyway, I'll leave that for you to study. Let's take a look at what happens in D3, right? So I'm going to close that up because we don't need to look at it, right? We're going to let D3 draw all the stuff for us. I'm going to look at our example file, right? This is linked in the description, right? And I'm going to scroll down to the second section here, which is example number 1, drawing a line graph, okay? And you can see here I'm loading the monthly sales data again, and I'm creating a scale linear, okay? And I'm using extent to get the range of months. And then I'm setting the range that we're going to draw to from 0 to the width of the chart, which in our case is 500, okay? And then I'm creating a Y scale linear. Just for fun, without using extent, I did this one by finding the minimum and max. But basically this right here does the same thing as what we did here with extent, which is easier. But if you needed to find the minimum and maximum value, D3 has a function for that. So you can say D3.min, provide an array of data, and a callback function that returns the value that you're looking for. So here I have, actually I can get rid of these things, right? So here I'm taking in D, which is an object, right? If I look at my sales data, every object is one of these. It has a month and a sales. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the sales value, right? And so min is, after we look at all the values here, min is going to return the lowest value that we returned here. And then max will do the same thing, but it'll return the highest value that we found, okay? Okay, and then we've got our range here, which is going to be height of chart to 10, okay? So now let's draw the line, okay? So to draw a line, we're going to use D3.line. And D3.line is very similar to using the scale property, the D3 scales, right? We call D3.line, and it returns an object, and we call the .x property on it to determine the x position, and the .y property to determine the y. And then in the end, we can call the curve to say what type of curve we want to draw, okay? So again, we can chain these methods together if you want. So, you can write them like this, right? This is how I wrote them down below. So I wrote it the same way. I said D3.line, and then I just chained the x, the y, and the curve. So the idea here is you're calling D3.line. You're going to generate a function that's going to generate all the point data for the line, and you're going to use the x function to tell D3 how to generate the x position of each point, and call the y function to tell D3 how to determine the y position of each line, of each point on the line, and call the curve method to say what type of D3 curve you're going to use, okay? Okay, cool. So let's take a look at our line function, right? So our line function looks like this. We're going to call D3 line, and then we're going to call x, and then this is a function that takes in a value, right? And we can use, we're going to return the x value here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the x scale function to provide the x value, okay? So this should be one of the values from my data, and I'll get the month from the data, the month value, the number, right? And then down here, I'll get the y value, and I'll say, okay, for each value, and remember our value looks like this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say Y scale. Let's use our Y scale and then use the sales value to determine the Y scale, okay? And last, to determine what kind of curve we're going to use, we're going to provide d3.curve, and then you can give it one of the built-in D3 curves, right? So this is a property that's a curve type. Curve linear is straight lines. And if you do D3 dot and you type curve, it'll show you, like, or at least in VS Code, it'll code hint you all the different D3 curves. So if I choose basis, you can see I'll save the file, and then the curve is kind of smooth, right? If I choose D3 curve basis closed, you can see that it draws the line to here, and then it tries to close it again from to the beginning, right? Let's see, curve basis open. Let's do cardinal. Similar, but not quite the same. Let's see. Yeah, and to be truthful, I don't know all the math behind all these. Let's do cardinal close, cardinal open, catmull rom. I don't know. I just like that one for some reason. Huh. I think I like basis better. It was smooth. Anyway, let's see what else they got here. Oh yeah, there's a couple in here that are kind of interesting. So we chose linear earlier. We saw that, right? Monotone X. Whoa, I don't even know what that is, right? Doesn't really look that different. Let's see. There's one in here that I kind of liked. I'm going to go find it. It's called step. Okay, so I'm going to save the step line, and then you'll notice it draws a stepped line. It's all the paths are vertical or horizontal. Okay, so that might be useful for something. So anyway, there's a whole slew of lines in there. You can follow this link here to there's a web page that has a kind of a little tool that lets you explore the different curve types from D3. So if you're curious about that, you can go explore it there. Okay, so actually one more thing here before we're done. The D3 line method that we're calling is really just returning another function to us. Okay, so it returns a function. So this actually doesn't draw the line itself. We'll need to call this function to generate the data that makes up the line here, remember? So let's take a look at that, right? So here's our line function right here called line function, creative name, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to this draw line right here, D3 select, and I'm going to append a new path. So you'll notice I took a different tactic here. I didn't do a select all and then data and then enter, because the line is just a single line, right? So we're just going to create a single path. So what I did is I said, hey, let's select the SVG element, which I'll make some notes here, select SVG element, and then we're just going to append a single path, okay? Right? And then what we'll do is we'll set the D property, the data for that path, and we'll use our line function and pass the line into it, okay? Or pass the data into the line function, okay? And again, like this is just going to return the data. So we could have also done it in this way, right? If I have the data somewhere, I could have said, const, line data equals, line function data, and then we could take our line data and just put it here, right? So that works the same way too, right? So this is just a function, you're passing data in, it's just generating the, line data for you, right? It's generating all those points, okay? So anyway, so that was the line here, and to draw multiple things within the SVG, I first selected it, I set the data for the line, I set the stroke style, the stroke width, the fill to none, and then down here to add the labels, to put these labels on here, I did the same code that we used above. I selected my element, select all, added the data, entered the data, and then I appended text elements for each one of the numbers that we see on the line graph. okay? And then I use the same X and Y scale here to position the text objects, right? Okay, so anyway, so thanks for watching, and I hope that was interesting. And there's a couple challenges here. So to follow this, what you should do is you need to go through the challenges and try it on your own. So challenge number 1 is to draw a line graph using scale linear, right, and the line property, right, or line function, and use the viewership data. So this is a little bit different data than we use with the sales data, but it's similar. So you can start here. And then there's challenge number 2, which is to add an axis to the graph. And maybe we'll cover that in how the axis works in the next video. But try this challenge here and draw your own graph using the viewership data. Okay, so thanks for watching.